Hello, everybody. My name is Dread. Welcome back to Miss Valley Entertainment News. I've been on a small hiatus while I recharged my batteries and did some fun things just for myself. So we're going to jump back into here with a little reaction. We've got a video by Bellular News. I've only watched the first couple minutes of it. I don't know what the entire thing is about, but we're going to cover it. This video is called "The Warner Brothers, or WB, Games Situation is Even Worse Than We Thought." Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something about me. I do cover negative news here because negative news is news, and negative news gets more views. Hey, that rhymes. I'm a poet, and I didn't even know it. I but I don't enjoy negative news. I like to hear positive news as well, so the channel will strive to find positive news as well. This kind of news makes me a little sad, a little depressed, a little bewildered, a little angry, a little something. I don't know, man. I don't know. But let me start off with some good news then. Some good news about me personally. I've spent the last week playing Enshrouded, and it is a wonderful, wonderful game. If you're a solo gamer, don't have any qualms about jumping into this game because you could have a hell of a fun time just playing by yourself. Um, it's a wonderful little RPG. It is a survival RPG where your food and your drink and stuff is only for buffs, so you don't need it to survive. But um, great exploration, great skill trees, great fights, some epic boss battles, some good builds, a fun map to explore. It's fun to kind of try to figure out what's been going on in the world of Embervale, I believe it is. It is just a wonderful little game. I'd encourage you to check it out. And if you like playing with friends, I can only imagine the kind of fun you could have jumping into a co-op game, inviting somebody into your game, and saying, hey, come over here, help me do a build, help me gather resources, help me fight this boss. Yeah. Enshrouded is just a great, great game, and I'm going to be playing it for a while. In other news, I've already purchased Dragon's Dogma 2. I have not installed it yet because I had to buy a larger hard drive for my games. So I'm waiting for it to arrive right now. Should be here next week. I'm recording this on Saturday, so as by the time you guys see this, it'll be this coming week, this week that we're going to be in as you're watching this probably. Waiting for my 4 terabyte solid state drive to arrive, upgrading from a 1 terabyte to give myself plenty of room to install more games because I don't really have much room left. I did, however, install the character creator for Dragon's Dogma, which allowed me to create my main character, my Arisen, to try out some different builds and different creations until I got what I wanted, also to create my main pawn. So I'd encourage you to check that out. In fact, I may jump back into that later on and do a video just on the character creator itself. Anyways, that's enough about me. Really, this is all about you. This is all about me giving you the news, giving you my opinion, and giving you an opportunity to speak on what you feel. So let's jump into listening to Bellular News here and figuring out what they've got to say and how I feel about it, how you feel about it. Let's see.
Alright, you've probably seen headlines and videos saying that Warner Brothers looked at Suicide Squad and basically decided that, in spite of everything, they actually want more live services. Thing is, we looked at the source of that headline, and it turns out it's actually quite a bit worse, because when executives start trying to sell the future vision of their company to investors and analysts, you get a glimpse behind the curtain, and with that, you see what those who have got the real power want.
Interestingly enough, when you're selling a vision of your gaming company, question is, are you chasing a trend? Because trends in gaming will end before your game finishes. And they'll switch to another trend. So you can't really follow trends in gaming. You can't do it. Unless you're expecting a trend to stay around long term, which it really won't. It will change. So let's see what the rest of this video is. Excuse me, and whether or not they're trend chasing or not. That's hard to say.
Which is certainly not to support our payroll via today's sponsor, for the people over at Bellular.games who literally make this whole thing possible. The overarching plan that I have is for as much of our financial security and freedom to be from Bellular.games and all the things that we do over there, meaning that we are safe from advertiser BS. We are safe from seasonal downturns like the one that advertising is in right now. Often when our channel has been doing really well, lots of our videos technically lose money, which obviously sucks. So long-term picture, I want things to be sustainable. I want them to be healthy. I want maximum job security and a platform from which we can sustainably grow and make shit better for you. So if you
don't want much, do you?
The link is down below. With that said, then let's go and talk about this whole situation. So I'll begin today with the obvious. Suicide Squad has not actually done that well. This is fairly uncontroversial, and it does actually reflect the opinion of Warner Brothers executives during their recent financial reporting. But the question has been, what happens next, right? There's a lot of games that exist under the Warner Bros. Belt. They've got a lot of IP, loads of different studios, and their future is dependent on somebody having a plan. Now, to you and me, you'd probably look at, say, Hogwarts Legacy and some of their other successes and think, more of those. That seemed to go well.
Sure.
So it's time to find out what they actually think. This week, we had the Morgan Stanley Technology, Media and Telecoms Conference. Thankfully, none of us were there because that sounds very boring, but who was J.B. Perrette, a Warner Bros. Discovery executive. He's basically the guy under the microscope today. He's the person who delivered the pitch for Warner Bros. Discovery as a company that investors will be following the stock for. So here, his entire mission is to sell the company to these people by showing that they have a plan for streaming, for movies, and of course for video games. Video games made up about 3 minutes of the 40-minute long Q&A, so I suppose that gives you an idea of proportionately how relevant it is. Games are kind of small fry for them, which I suppose does make sense. Maybe it also gives a little bit of context to their decision to shutter Rooster Teeth.
I don't know much about Rooster Teeth. I'll hear a lot of people talking about it. It's kind of just going by either side of my head, and I'm hearing things, but I don't really have anything to say about it. I don't know Rooster Teeth. Yeah, I got nothing to say on the subject, at least at this point. Do you find it interesting, though? A 40-minute talk and 3 minutes are on gaming. So if they're focusing then on television and movies, can I just point out something that should be obvious by now? If you're focusing on television and movies as a way to make money, you're probably going to fail. Let's be realistic here. If we've learned anything over the last couple of years, through the COVID situation where movies came out onto television almost directly after they came out in theater, or at the same time, or skip the theater altogether because people weren't going. If we take a look at the fact that streaming services now exist and a bunch of movies are on there, that people watch more things online, on their computer, on their tablet, on their phone, than they actually do on their television. It should be quite obvious that television is a dying media right now. It's not going to be a moneymaker because it's going to continue to go downhill. The internet, the computer, has overtaken television by far and is going to drown it in its own tears. So if you're focusing on television and you're focusing on movies to make your money, for your media empire, I want to respectfully put out there, I think you're rowing a boat in a circle in the middle of a lake that has a hole bigger than you are in the bottom of it. You're not going to make money. That's not a good idea. And probably out of the three things, movies, television, and games, your focus probably should be on games as a way to make you money. Unfortunately, many of the gaming companies that do, or maybe the companies that do focus on games, are focusing on live service, and they are going to choke the life out of themselves because everybody's trying to get into gaming in the same way to grab all your money, and they're not realizing that also is not going to work very much longer. I don't know what it is about big companies who cannot take the blinders off and see the big picture anymore. I just don't understand. Why are people so tunnel visioned and not able to see the big picture where we're going? Why? Does anybody know why? Obviously, it's greed. Sure. Yeah, but I mean, beyond that, like, I just don't understand. The average person, when they think about it, can tell you gaming is going to make you a lot more money than television or movies long term. Uh, Having a successful plan is really about empowering the developers and the development teams. Sure, absolutely. I don't have a problem with streamlining a team, cutting off the excess fat, cutting off the waste, and saying, let's make you a smaller, more cohesive, more smooth running team so you can put out good titles, good games, things that people want. Make sure you're listening to the public, that kind of thing. But instead, the gaming companies go, oh no, let's just put out more live service because it works for this and this and this. So surely it'll work for us. But again, the pie is only so big. There's only so much money and time to go around. And thinking that and when you jump in, the pie expands and everybody still gets more doesn't work. It's ridiculous how businessmen and businesswomen, business people, right? Well, to be fair, business people, fairly successful, probably business people for large companies cannot see the writing on the wall. They don't get it. And that is very concerning in so many areas of life.
It's video arm this week as well. Yeah, Rooster Teeth is gone, so that's also a thing that happened. Though of course they certainly have experienced decline and drama. Now I do have the entire transcript here that's relevant.
Just wanted to lick the bellular guy.
What
Sorry.
I'll do though is just walk through the bits that actually matter, and we can sort of talk about what's up here. They don't know where the industry is going next, but in the Q&A response, they, of course, name check virtual reality and AR, okay? They mention, the Apple Vision Pro and virtual worlds. Obviously, these are just things that investors and analysts will generally like to hear. I think for a lot of them, they see Apple moving into that space. And of course, Apple has nudged a lot of spaces forward, so from an...
And VR stuff is definitely something gaming companies and other companies should be keeping a very close eye on. Beginning to make tentative plans, but I think you want the technology to advance a little bit more before you decide how you're going to use that, because the technology advances so quickly sometimes. You don't want to lock in like, hey, we're going to use it this way, and then it advances so far beyond that you look stupid. I also don't know, what percentage of gamers play VR games? Does anybody know that? I have not looked it up. I'm not aware. I really don't know. But I'm curious, is it large enough that you think it's going to be a growing industry and a money industry? I mean, there's going to be some money in it, but how much? I don't know. I just don't know. How long in the future will it be before VR takes over as the main gaming thing? I could see it happening in the future. I just don't know when. Next year? Probably not. 5 years from now? Probably not still. 10 years from now? It's probably made some gains by 10 years from now. 20 years from now, has it taken over? I don't know, because I don't know where the industry is going. I really don't. And I don't know how far down the toilet some of these bad people are going to take the gaming industry, and how much failure there's going to be before we even get out of that. So how can I possibly know how VR is going to do? Right? I have a gloomy look at the industry right now. I really do. And I apologize for that, but there's reasons for it.
Investors' perspective, you could actually see, oh, look at that, a new product category. Finally, Apple are there. They're probably the herald of it being very big. Of course, to a lot of us who are a little bit more used to that tech, we can certainly see the pros and the cons, and I don't think anybody thinks that spatial computing, as they put it, is going to take off quite as fast as maybe these investors would hope. Even though, I do think the technology is pretty damn awesome and cool. Anyway, they've got 11 studios under their banner for video games, so the whole point here is to say that there's a long-term roadmap and a plan for strategic investment. So in the response, they identify 4 IPs as key assets, right? These are ones worth more than $1 billion, and those are Mortal Kombat, DC Comics, Game of Thrones, and Harry Potter. Now, this is the offending, I'll just quote him directly, the sort of offending words. The challenge we've had is that historically our business has been very AAA console-based. That's a great business when you have a hit like Harry Potter. It makes the year look amazing. Unfortunately, when you you don't have a release or when you have disappointments, we just released Suicide Squad this quarter, which was not as strong. It just makes it very volatile. So one of the things in this space, that say investors would very much care about is volatility, right? They will, in many cases, want lower volatility. And perhaps to take an example from some other stocks to just sort of illustrate the thinking here, there are certainly stocks like Palantir or Tesla that a lot of retail investors retail investor would be like, you and me, right? Not the big institutional sort of types, where there was volatility, maybe too much for the institutional types to, to sort of be as comfortable. So that's kind of what they'd want to be showing here, right? They basically want to say that things aren't volatile.
Okay, but it sounds like in their quote that they're saying the challenge we've had historically, our business has been very AAA console based. So that's great when you have a hit, but it's not great when you don't. But are they blaming that on AAA consoles? I'm confused by this. Obviously, there's more to it, but I don't understand what that paragraph is actually meaning. The challenge we've had is that in the past, our business has been based around AAA consoles. Okay. Why is that a challenge? Why is that something that's challenging for you? Because we make games for AAA consoles, we get volatility where some games do well and some games don't. I mean, if you made games for the Apple iWatch and you put out a great game and it sold well and it did well, and then you put out a sucky game that nobody wanted to buy, wouldn't that not be the same thing? And it's not AAA console based. It's got nothing to do with where your games are being sold to or being played. It's got to do with how good of a game you put out. It's like they're blaming the fact that they had a loss in a bad game on the fact that, well, it's because we're making games for AAA consoles. That's why. What? Is that just did they just pass the buck and basically say it's the consumer and the way they play games and where they play games that's the problem that made Suicide Squad so bad? Does it not seem like that's what they're saying? Oh my word!
They want more live service games. They're insane. I think to them, though, Suicide Squad is a premium console game that uses the monetization techniques of a live service game, but that doesn't exactly make it a game that is ideally a live service. Now, a lot of the discussion that we've had in this channel is the example of, say, a game like Helldivers. It's overtly, right? Helldivers 2 is overtly a live service. It's designed to be a live service. Everything is in service of that. Instead of with Suicide Squad, where you had, a pretty rubbish, not particularly good premium console game with a bad live service tacked on top of it. Kind of like the worst of both worlds. And I think when you look at games like Anthem, Avengers, Suicide Squad, it's very much the worst of both worlds. What they will want here is the best of both. And that's where we're going to be talking about what they actually mean when they say live services. So to go on to another quote here, right? They need to develop a much more holistic approach, especially in expanding into mobile and multi-plat free to play, which could, they say, give us better revenue and
making mobile games and multi-platform free to play games is going to make you better and more consistent revenue. What? So that's just them saying we want to make live service games that are for any and all platforms we can find. So we want to find additional people to milk money out of. That's kind of what they're saying.
consistent set of revenue. So again, it is that consistency. Now, a game that I think illustrates this pretty well, funny enough, is Apex Legends, because it started off pretty strong. It's definitely had growing pains and issues, but they've, broadly speaking, done a really good job. Financially, though, it was very interesting watching Apex Legends. It, for a long time, was exactly what EA wanted, just nice, consistent, growing revenue. It was growing in Japan, right? That was a whole big story. Things were going really well. But then what happened is something that I think is fairly interesting: an inability to forecast whether your revenue is a spike or if it is genuinely a large increase that you should basically count on in the future, where they had essentially very great success, but they weren't able to keep it up. I forget exactly what season it was, but their revenue kind of dipped, and you basically saw them very clearly try to pump that up again with the Final Fantasy event. Now, I think for a group like Warner Bros., they'll be very weak at predicting trends, like they were very weak with Harry Potter, where seemingly they had pretty overinflated expectations for Suicide Squad. For me, the other thing there is, think about EA and Apex. Their revenue is going down, so what can you start to do? You can do events, promotions, all of these things surrounding a game you're already running.
So we're going to get more games with events and promotions. You guys like games with events and promotions? I don't. I'm not interested in most of them at all. By the way, nice to see some footage of Harry Potter there, because Hogwarts Legacy is a great game. It's a great game. Put any controversy you may have heard of aside, it is a great and fun game, especially if you enjoyed the movies, or probably the books too. I've never read the books, but I enjoyed the movies. It is just a hell of a fun game. I'm looking forward to getting back into it. I haven't played it in a couple weeks now.
Of having to make a new AAA console game that'll come out next year and hopefully be good. So you can kind of see why they want these forever live services, where to get the money up, rather than make a whole new game, they just need to run very successful events. Anyway, they've got mobile games coming out this year to start that ball rolling, and then they talk about basically what they want the business to be. I'll go back to a quote. Rather than just launching one-and-done console games, how do we develop a game around, for example, Hogwarts Legacy or Harry Potter, that is a live service where people can come together to live and work and build and play in a world in an ongoing basis?
There's many people like me who don't want to come together with other people in a game. We just want to play the game by ourselves. But it seems like if you're a solo player, you don't hold much interest, because all they can get from you is the price of the game. I don't know, man. The industry is in a very, very sad state right now. It's in a very dark place, and they're going down a very dark sloping tunnel, in my opinion, that they just, I don't know.
Yes, funny enough, everyone just wants their own version of World of Warcraft with loads of microtransactions, right? Anyway, he ends the pitch on essentially a reframe here, right? Reframing a literal best-selling game like Harry Potter or Hogwarts Legacy as being too risky of a prospect because it might not succeed. And that's basically the point. They don't want Hogwarts Legacy big spikes, sometimes, rarely. They want Harry Potter, line go up forever, right? And ultimately, it makes sense that was talked about here because this was at a Morgan Stanley conference that is obviously all about investors, right? For a lot of these guys, what do they look at? They look at Epic Games and Fortnite. They also look at Roblox. That being said, I do want to just laugh at Roblox for a second. So, yeah, there's the line. As you can see, very much trading sideways over the last while.
So I'm not going to jump any further into this video by Bellier and the News. I don't think we've gone on long enough. I think you've kind of got the gist of what's being pitched to the investors for where the industry is going, for at least for Warner Brothers. And you can bet pretty much every other large studio has come up with the same ideas, because they don't think by themselves. Yeah, and you obviously know how I feel about it. I'm very depressed about this. I'm very down about this. I'm just going to continue to look for great single player games, like I always do. And sometimes you find them with AAA companies. Sometimes you find them with indie developers. And I've been playing The Killing Antidote, which is in beta play testing right now. That is like a take a rip off. It's a rip off, and I say that in quotes. It's a rip off of Resident Evil. It is very Resident Evil like, but it is a beautiful game put out by a Chinese development company of two people, and they are determined to stay independent. They're working. It's Metal Star Studios, and they're working on this game, and people are freaking pumped about this game. I've been playing the heck out of the demo and showing it off on my channel, Miss Valley Gaming, doing some live streams. Gonna do some videos on it eventually, but so far just been live streams. It is a wonderful and awesome game. It's a single player game, people. That is and should be where the future of the industry is, just making good games. Instead, they don't want to make good games. They just want to make games that stay at a certain monetary level forever and just keep going. And I think that's a problem. I think that's a problem. So let me know what your thoughts are. I will leave a link to the original video down below. You can watch the last half of it if you care to. And yeah, sort of be Debbie Downer here, but those are my thoughts. I got to give my honest opinions. So for Miss Valley Entertainment News, my name is Dread. Thank you all so much. Good night.